Ladies and gentlemen, I am back. Hello everybody, it is your host, Reviews Kingdom, back after 2 years of not making a video. That's right, 2 years. It's been 2 years since I last uploaded a video. Only 2 years. What the hell have I been doing with my life? But that's not important. What is important though is that I'm back with a new video, and I want to thank all the people that have stuck around my channel, and for all the newcomers that are interested in my channel, I wanted to thank you all for 1,000 subscribers. I know I haven't been doing much lately with my channel, but I'm doing my best, and today, like I said, I am back with a new video, and this one is going to be a very special video for me, because in this video, I'm going to be starting a retrospective. That's right, you heard me right, a retrospective. And this one's also really important to me, because I'm going to be doing a retrospective on Skillet, and for those of you who do not know, this is like the band that got me into music, and by extension got me into rock music. So this one is a very special retrospective for me, and I just wanted to go through their discography just to see like if their albums have held up, just to give them a fair shake, take off my nostalgia glasses, and finally look at these albums from a critical lens. So without further ado, let's start the retrospective. But before we start the retrospective, I think it's important that we go over a little history before we start this review. So, without further ado, let's get into the history of Skillet. For those of you who don't know, Skillet was originally formed in Memphis, Tennessee in 1996 with two members. John Cooper, who was the bassist and the vocalist for the band, had also been the lead singer for the Memphis, Tennessee progressive rock band, Sephraf, and Ken Strotz formed guitars for the band Urgent Cry. Drummer Trey McClurkin eventually came in to complete the lineup for the original band. After Sephraf and Urgent Cry broke up, John Cooper and Ken Strotz's pastor talked the two of them into joining forces to form a new band. They called themselves Skillet because they came from such different musical backgrounds that they felt like they were throwing everything into a skillet to see what they can cook up. Drummer Trey McClurkin rounded up the trio, and in mere weeks, Forefront Records had signed them. Over the years, the band has seen changes in the band's lineup, with the original members still being around, being John Cooper himself. But as we go more into this retrospective, we will go more into the lineup and each change, so don't worry about that. Their first album ended up releasing in October 29th of 1996 on their label Forefront Records. And now that is all out of the way, let's start the review. One important thing to know about Skillet and this album in general is that the band is very Christian and religious. And I know, just by hearing that, you think that this is going to be the most preachiest and corny music ever, and well, it's certainly both of those, alright. Look, it's not really too preachy, but good lord is the cheese strong with this one. Like, this is the sharp cheddar cheese of music. But another very interesting thing about this album is its sound and style. The style of rock music Skillet chooses here is certainly a head scratcher here. That style is grunge. Yep, grunge. You know, the sound that bands like Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, and Nirvana pioneered. Yeah, that grunge. Hearing this idea on paper sounds like a very odd mix-up. Now look, I know what you in the audience are thinking, saying, you can't just judge an album by its cover or its concept, and in that regards, you are 100% true. But how does this album go out in execution? Well, it's very strange to say the least. And I'm not trying to say that you can't mesh genres together or you can't mesh something like Christian and grunge together. I'm not saying like, oh, grunge music is all dingy and gloomy and there's no glimmer of hope in it. I'm not saying that. In fact, one grunge song that I can point to that actually has a bit of optimism to it is The Day I Tried to Live by Soundgarden. So basically, I'm not trying to say that, like, oh, because it's grunge, it's supposed to sound all dark and gloomy and all Kurt Cobain and whatnot. I'm not trying to say that. But what I am trying to say is that it feels very weird just how they did this. It almost feels like they're just making covers of famous grunge songs, spliced in with lyrics about loving Jesus Christ himself. Like I said, I'm not saying that you can't mesh these two genres together. I mean, hell, one of my favorite albums of all time, Green Day's American Idiot, combines pop punk and opera, and that is easily one of my favorite albums of all time. I can listen to it on repeat. But I don't know, it feels like Skillet just kind of gives an undercooked product that doesn't really flesh out its ideas very well, but at the same time, it kind of knows what it wants to be, and I guess I can respect that. But if I'm going to be fair, I can tell that the band is definitely giving it their all. I can definitely tell that there was love and passion put into this project, especially the instrumentation, which is pretty solid in this album, if not a bit stiff, that is. Trey is undoubtedly the band member who is giving it his all. His drumming in this album is very, very solid, and while not the best drummer in the world, he is pretty on point for this project. My only two problems with this album in terms of instrumentation is that it can sound a bit generic from time to time. Like, if you were to think of any grunge song from this time period, this just kind of sounds like what you expect from any grunge groups. The riffs aren't that creative or original, and the bass can sometimes get lost in the mixing of this album. But for a self-titled album, this is not too bad. Another issue I would have with this album in terms of instrumentals is John Cooper himself, and yes, I know he's a vocalist, but stick with me on this one. Throughout the album, it sounds and feels like he's restraining himself and isn't showing his true potential as a vocalist. He does this whisper-like voice in most of these tracks, and it can feel a bit forced at times, and I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I gotta cut him some slack. This is the debut album after all. However, instruments aren't the only things that make an album great. Lyrics are also very important too, and how are those? Well, let's just say that John Cooper and the boys aren't exactly lyrical geniuses themselves. Let me come out and say this nice and easy. This album lyrically is just a huge cheese fest with no stopping. And you know, that's pretty typical for a Christian album. In fact, you can probably think of any Christian album, and this is probably the textbook definition. Like songs about loving Jesus, and he's always safe with you, and you thought that you were a true Catholic. You know, pretty standard for Christian stuff by all means. But aside from lyrics about loving Jesus, there are also songs about wanting to stick your head in the thorn bush, songs about Saturn, and let's not forget, promise blenders. Most of what I mentioned is all just a metaphor about John's love for Jesus, and I'll give it this, he is very passionate, and I can obviously very respect that. Unfortunately, that also means I don't have to exactly like what I'm hearing, because songs like You Thought and Safe With You are just seeping with corniness and cheesiness. It almost borders on parody territory. Like, I am not joking, just read the lyrics to both of these songs and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Not only that, but two other songs that stick out like a sore thumb are My Beautiful Robe and Promise Blender. In My Beautiful Robe, it almost seems like John is writing about how he wants to stick his head in a thorn bush. I mean, like, I think we're dealing with more than just love here, but damn is that rough. Actually, it kind of fits the grunge scene a little bit. Also, may I please ask a question? Exactly how long did it take the band to come up with the song names such as Promise Blender? Like, I know it just sounds like rambling at this point, but these lyrics are just so cheesy and goofy, I'm wondering if the band is being serious sometimes. So, yeah, like I said, the lyrics themselves are not too great or even good. And I know what you're probably thinking, like, most of what I'm saying is just kind of redundant. But this album itself is, well, redundant in and of itself. Like, every single song is about the exact same thing. There's really no different meaning behind any different song. It's all just the same metaphor and the same thing about Jesus Christ and whatnot. And I know it's a Christian album, but God, is this such a basic album that it's almost disappointing, but at the same time, it's a self-titled album, so I can't give it too much flack, but this is just not that great, like, at all. So, to wrap things up for this album, overall, I would have to say that this album is a very, very mixed bag. Mostly because this album plays it safe and it kind of falls in like line with what you would come to expect from like most Christian rock albums. Like they talk about loving Jesus, which is fine, but it just feels very safe and it doesn't really seem to venture out into any new or interesting ideas. And that's really the problem with Christian music in general, is that it just kind of sticks in this one bubble where it's just singing about this one thing and doesn't really seem to go on any daring topics most of the time, and it just kind of falls in line with what you'd expect. However, I will say that the instrumentation in this album is pretty nice. I will have to say that. Although some of it can feel a bit generic at times, I feel like the band, the most part, instrumentally speaking, have done a pretty good job of making a authentic grunge sound at least, even though at some points it feels like they're almost parodying the genre. But yeah, overall, this album it's a mixed bag for me. I'm sorry, I don't know what you people want me to say. And if you really want a rating on this thing, I would have to give it a light 5 out of 10. And I don't really see myself revisiting this album anytime soon, or really at all, actually. Like, I remember this one used to actually be my favorite Skillet album, but I don't know. If this is my favorite Skillet album, then, oh, good lord, it's all downhill from here. But, not to worry, as this will not be the final video in the Skillet retrospective. Next time, I will be covering Skillet's second album, Hey You, I Love Your Soul. But, that's on the retrospective. Not sure exactly what my next review is going to be, but I'm just letting you know that I will try to come out with another video after this one gets uploaded. So, if you like this video, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in another video. Hopefully, that is. Anyways, goodbye, everyone.